Hi guys and girls, welcome to my Hell in a Cell 2018 review. It's Tim here. Let's get cracking straight into it, shall we? Overall, I thought it was a good pay-per-view. There were a couple of match finishes which one I wasn't keen on, and I'll go into that in a bit more detail later. One I definitely wasn't keen on, and it's probably the one, the ending that most people weren't keen on at all. Again, we'll get into that in a bit more detail a little bit later. Have a confession to make. I didn't watch the kickoff show because I didn't know what matches were going to be on it. So when I got onto the main card and then found out that New Day versus Rusev Day was on the kickoff show, was highly annoyed. I felt like there was enough time for it to be on the main card. It just felt like nobody knew what to do with the kickoff, so they just threw that on there. Also kind of telegraphed the result of the match, to be honest, because there was no way that New Day would lose the titles on the kickoff show, because that's too big of a deal. So that annoyed me. But getting into the main card, so the first match of the night was actually one of the two Hell in a Cell matches, and that was Randy Orton against Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy finally ticking off one of the things he wanted to do coming back to WWE, which was competing in a Hell in a Cell match. It was a very brutal match. It was probably one of the most exciting Randy Orton matches I've seen for a long while. He was particularly vicious in it. Jeff Hardy, you know, he kind of ramped up his physicality in it as well. You know, there were a few swantons that Randy kicked out of. There was one onto Randy who was lying on a chair. Was he lying on it, or was it on top of him? Either way, there was a chair involved that he kicked out of, which I didn't think he would. I thought that was going to be the finish. Thankfully, the finish didn't see a Jeff Hardy swanton off the top of the cell, because that just would have been crazy. I think having the match on first kind of telegraphed there wouldn't be anything too crazy, because they wouldn't want to destroy an announce table at the start of the night. So there were lots of chair shots. At one point, Randy was really wailing a chair onto Jeff's back. There was a spot where Randy was hitting Jeff with his own belt, and then shortly later on, Jeff returned the favour and then some. At one point, Randy literally cuts his leg open, and there's a bit of skin hanging off, which was gross, but it added a lot to the match. Seeing Randy bleeding and battered and, you know, skin hanging off, it makes it look more legitimate, which is brilliant. There was the horribly fantastic screwdriver spot where Randy gets the screwdriver, puts it through the hole in Jeff's ear, and then just pulls and twists the screwdriver around so it twists his ear. And I mean, as injuries go, it's probably not that bad. It probably doesn't hurt that much, but it looks horrible. It's really squeamish. So that was a brilliant spot, and it just ramped up the whole Randy sticking his finger in his ear and pulling it from a few weeks back. The match ends when Jeff's put Randy on a table, set up a couple of ladders, climbs the ladders, then kind of climbs onto the beam of the Hell in a Cell. Positions himself above Randy, swings to drop himself on. Just before he drops, Randy rolls off the table. So Jeff goes pretty much chest and face first through a table onto the floor, which is still a big bump, but not as big or as bad as what we were expecting. So the ref calls for the cell to be lifted and for the EMT team to come out. Before they can get Jeff out, Randy makes sure that the ref counts the pin. Literally tells him to do his job and count the pin. Which is right. They keep saying there's only 2 ways out of Hell in a Cell, or 2 ways to win Hell in a Cell. That's by pinfall or submission. So I don't know why the ref's calling for EMT first. We'll get into that again a bit later. Hopefully it gives Jeff the chance to rest his body. Hopefully he's off TV and off live events for a few weeks. He's already said that he doesn't do a swanton at house shows because it just hurts his back too much. So if WWE could give him a month off just to rest, that would be super. Thank you. Second match of the night was for the SmackDown Women's title. So the newly heel / tweener / badass Becky Lynch against Charlotte Flair, the champion. Again, this has been good since Becky's kind of turn. Becky's even more over now than she was. Charlotte hasn't actually done anything wrong in this feud, but it's still getting booed, which is quite funny. But hopefully WWE will just let fans cheer for who they want to cheer, not have a specific face, not have a specific heel, and just let people make their own choice rather than trying to force a situation. So the match starts. Becky's working Charlotte's left arm and shoulder throughout the match. Not only does it set her up for the disarmer later to try and get the disarm her to try and win the match, but it also means that it's harder for Charlotte to bridge into the figure 8 if she's only got one good arm, so it's harder for her to bridge. So that's really good. Charlotte's using she's using her power game, which she's quite a strong competitor, so that makes sense. The match is pretty much back and forth for the majority of it. The finish comes out of nowhere, kind of. Charlotte's going for goes for a spear, and Becky, she reverses it into, to me it kind of looked a bit like a power slam and then into a pin. It was a little bit sloppy, which is kind of understandable. Reversing somebody trying to do a spear is never going to look clean, and I don't think it should look clean, because in real life that wouldn't. So it makes it look legitimate, at least. 1, 2, 3. Becky wins. Good job, girl. Everybody's happy, apart from Charlotte, of course, but all the fans are going mental because they wanted a Becky win because she's so incredibly over. There's a bit of kind of pondering on Charlotte's part. She gets up to shake Becky's hand, and you think there's going to be a kind of handshake, and then Becky doesn't swerve us by just beating the hell out of Charlotte again. So she says to Charlotte, "No, this is my moment. You're not taking this off me by trying to upstage me by shaking my hand." And she walks off with the title. I think that was a good way to leave it. What annoyed me a little bit is that Becky's literally saying, "You're not taking the moment away from me." Then as she walks off, the camera's stuck on Charlotte for a good 4 or 5 seconds when it should be on Becky. So she's saying that it's not, Charlotte's not going to take her moment away. But then kind of like WWE production is doing that by focusing on Charlotte so much. So that didn't really make a lot of sense, but that is a complete and utter minor bugbear. On to the next match. This was probably my least favourite match of the night. Yeah. No, sorry, I'm getting this wrong. So this was probably one of my favourite matches of the night. Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler versus Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose for the Raw Tag Titles. What confuses me a little bit is there's still no mention of Dean and Renee Young's marriage. It's been mentioned plenty of times before this feud, but now that she's on commentary full time, they don't seem to mention it, which is strange because they're really happy to show that Naomi and Jimmy Uso are married. Obviously Daniel and Brie, Miz and Maurice. I suppose they don't want to show Renee as this kind of, that she's just worried about her husband all the time. I kind of get that, but I still think they can mention it because we're not stupid. Everybody knows that they're married, so for her to show no kind of real emotion to the well-being of her husband, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Anyway, I digress. So the match starts off a little bit slow. It does quickly ramp up though. There's quite a good stare off between Ambrose and Drew McIntyre. Who McIntyre is awesome anyway, but I think this feud has really helped him because he looks like an absolute monster in it, which is fantastic. Obviously Ambrose has come back from his injury. He looks better. He looks more menacing. He's not doing that stupid thing where he sticks his head under the ropes and then comes back with a clothesline, because that move just didn't make sense. So thankfully he's got rid of that. There's a load of back and forth. So there's a tag on Rollins to Ambrose, which the ref doesn't see. Dolph and Drew take advantage. Other big moments, Seth reverses a DDT into a Falcon Arrow, which looked amazing. Only gets a 2 count. Seth then kicks out at 2 after a zigzag, which Dolph wins quite a lot of his matches with a zigzag. Seth then hits a 5-star frog splash on McIntyre, again another 2 count. And then an absolutely awesome finish to the match where Rollins has got the tag in on Ziggler, has been tagged in, and Ziggler is also the legal man for his team. Hits a superplex off the top, rolls through to hit a Falcon Arrow, but as he does, McIntyre comes into the ring, perfect timing, cracks Rollins with a Claymore, who crumples to the floor. Ziggler lands on top of him, 1, 2, 3, gets the win. Dolph is selling it well because he looks like he looks like it's lights out for Ziggler as well, and that he doesn't know what's going on. And then McIntyre looks like an absolute beast because he picks up both titles and Ziggler and has them on his shoulder as he just walks up the ring, up the ramp after the match. That made him look like an absolute monster, and it was brilliant. Yeah, I think it was a perfect shot. It makes him more legitimate, I think, and I don't know where they're going to go with the Universal title. Monday explained it a bit more. Monday Night's Raw explained it a bit more, but I want to see McIntyre in the Universal title picture. Touching on Raw a bit, I think I'd rather see a triple threat between Roman, Braun and McIntyre than Roman, Braun and Brock, to be fair. But you know, hopefully he gets his chance down the line, and I'd fully expect him to take it. Moving on to the middle of the card. Yeah, it was. It's actually the middle match in on the pay-per-view, which is super annoying. But it's Samoa Joe versus the WWE champion AJ Styles. So from the off, AJ rocks Joe early on. There's a lot of action going on outside the ring. Phenomenal forearm to Joe. Sorry, no. AJ goes for a phenomenal forearm, but Joe just rolls out of the ring to avoid it. Joe's then playing possum outside the ring, catches AJ and throws him into the steps. Joe then takes control, hits a great looking suicide elbow through the second and third ropes onto AJ outside, that knocks AJ onto the announce table. It was a really hard hitting match, this, and that works well with the narrative of the storyline that's been going on for this feud. So that was really good. AJ hits a moonsault into a reverse DDT. Only gets a 2 count, unfortunately, but that looked great. AJ then has Joe on his shoulders and hits him with what they called a rack bomb. Again, only gets a 2 count. Then again, springboard 450, only gets a 2 count. Joe then hits. So there's like a Joe comes off the ring and just absolutely destroys AJ. Just kind of like dives into him and not dives. Sorry. A massive clothesline, but it looks brutal. It absolutely destroys him. Busts AJ open. He only gets a 2 count off it. Joe then puts AJ onto the top turnbuckle, teases Muscle Buster, which is reversed into Styles Clash, which is then reversed and then reversed again into a calf crusher attempt. Then Samoa Joe hits an enziguri and he gets a 2 count. Then again, AJ goes for a phenomenal forearm. It's reversed into Kuklina clutch, which is reversed into a pin attempt. So AJ rolls. Joe sinks in the clutch, drops to the floor with AJ. AJ kind of carries his momentum to roll kind of backwards onto his feet. Gets the pin, gets the 1, 2, 3. Joe gets up like he's celebrating, and then when he hears "and still," it looks completely bemused, goes absolutely mental, goes out to the ring saying he's tapped. The announce team sell it well. Corey Graves generally looks like he's wetting himself with fear. Samoa Joe takes a bat off AJ, kind of like shoves it in his face, and then AJ hits Joe with a kick. Joe walks off, still absolutely fuming. Then we see on the replays that from the angle that the ref doesn't see, in between the 2 and the 3 count, AJ actually starts tapping out, which it's good that this feud is going to carry on. But what I didn't like about the finish is that AJ seems to get quite a few lucky wins with his title reign. Well, not lucky wins, but there are dusty finishes, and it's not just been with this title reign either. His feud with Kevin Owens there was a couple of count out losses and where he retains and rubbish like that, and then his feud with Nakamura. There was, he beats him at WrestleMania, but then there's the low blow, and then they have all the double disqualification. They have the double count out and all this kind of rubbish, and it just, I don't know why they're not just letting AJ just be, like he says, the phenomenal one, because then they've carried on the Nakamura feud. AJ's Samoa Joe's AJ's next feud, their title match ends in a DQ, the first one. Now this one's ended in controversy, and it's like AJ's kind of like moniker is the phenomenal one, so let him be phenomenal, and win matches clean. You don't have to protect everyone all the time. Just let him beat somebody 1, 2, 3 in the middle of the ring, and that's fine. In this sense, I'd have actually had Samoa Joe win. If they wanted to keep the feud going, have Samoa Joe win, and then AJ can win it back in a couple of weeks, or in Saudi Arabia, or whenever that is. So I was a bit annoyed with the finish, to be honest. But hey ho, it is what it is. It's a good feud. It will carry on. And I think what was mentioned between Joe and Paige in one of the kind of segments after this match was that they're going to have a no DQ match in, was it Saudi Arabia? I think it was. Yeah. No. Super Showdown. Sorry. So I don't know if there'll be another dodgy finish then. I hope not. I'd quite like to see Joe win the title as well, if I'm honest. Moving on to, so this was my least favourite match of the night. Daniel Bryan and Brie Bella versus Miz and Maurice. I haven't really put a lot about this match because it just, I wasn't interested in it. What I don't get with the Miz is his entrance gear it's rubbish, it looks awful, and it doesn't suit his character. So I don't know why he insists on wearing the stupid sunglasses, those stupid kind of trench coat type things, and then a Zack Ryder-esque headband. It just doesn't suit him, and it doesn't suit his character. So it doesn't make sense to me. It was pretty obvious between this match and the so-called main event from the last SmackDown show that Maurice isn't up to scratch with her match fitness as it was, because most of this match was just Maurice trying to get out of being in the ring. And this is what has annoyed me about the Bryan and Miz feud, is that they've involved the women in it, and that's not bad in itself, but Maurice hadn't wrestled for how many years before the last the WrestleMania where she had the mixed tag match against Cena and Nikki Bella, and Brie hasn't wrestled for 3 years. And I don't know, I mean, Brie's had a couple of matches on Raw and SmackDown the past week or so, but it's not been great. And I think if it seems like this match was thrown together a couple of weeks ago and that was it. It felt like they decided they were going to do this and then just told everyone they were going to do it without actually planning. If they'd have planned months back and let them wrestle each other in not dark matches, but just like at the performance center. Just go down to the performance center, the two of them, get a couple of matches in between them to get the ring rust off. That would have benefited it. So there was a lot of, going back to the match, there was a lot of Maurice trying to tag the Miz in or trying to avoid Brie. They're still doing the thing where Brie has to punch the Miz, even though technically shouldn't that be illegal in the match, so it should be a DQ. There was the spot where Brian and Brie were hitting Miz and Maurice with the yes kicks, and they both, I mean, it was so put on and it wasn't executed well, but when they go for the last kick, Miz and Maurice roll out and a bit more goes on, and then Maurice kind of pins Brie with a sloppy roll up, which I expected Miz and Maurice to win. This was kind of the way I expected it. It's kind of how I expected the match to go, and it wasn't entertaining in the slightest as far as I'm concerned. Thankfully, the next match picks up. So it starts off. So it's for the Raw Women's title. Alexa Bliss invoking a rematch clause against Ronda Rousey. It starts off sloppy. The match does. I think it takes both the competitors a while to get into their stride, and it's overbooked a lot to start with. So there's a lot of interference from Alicia Fox and Mickie James, and then Natalya gets involved as well because she's there as Ronda's best friend and blah blah blah. I don't think the match needed it. Again, I expected it. Ronda's offense was, there was a lot of ground based offense, but there was quite a lot of her judo throws, and so she was mixing it up between those, which is what you'd kind of expect from somebody with her background, with her MMA background. Alexa's main focus for the whole match is attacking Ronda's ribs, which, you know, she'd attacked the ribs on the Monday before Hell in a Cell, before the pay-per-view. She went back to that again. It worked to good use. Ronda sold it well. Fair play to her. I had seen somebody mention that she should have been wearing the tape because that's how you know her ribs are bad. But I can see why she didn't, because she wouldn't want to show the weakness. So it kind of shows the target, doesn't it, if you're wearing the tape. So that's fine. I was completely fine with her not wearing the tape. The match goes on for longer than I expected. It was better than I expected. I'm glad that it went on for as long as it did. It wasn't a complete and utter squash, and Alexa looked like more of a threat, which is great. There's a moment where she's got the upper hand on Ronda, and she's basically talking down to her in the ring, a load of smack talk. Ronda kind of hulks up a bit, and she ends up hissing at Alexa at one point, which was as funny as it was intimidating. Alexa sold it well. Fair play to her. Alexa's actually got a really good kind of like a I've effed up face. And I think that's why she works so well. I think that's one of the reasons why she's as pushed as she is, because she's a good talker. Her facial expressions are very, very good, and she is improving in the ring. But she's a cowardly heel, so I suppose she doesn't have to be the most amazing wrestler. She can probably do a lot more than they're showing. I do kind of like kind of like the backwards flip into the knees to the opponent's ribs. That's quite good. That looks good. Anyway, back to the match and the finish of the match. Ronda hits Alexa with the arm, with some kind of slam. It's kind of like it feels like it's a kind of like a Death Valley Driver / Samoan drop hybrid. Then puts Bliss in the armbar and she taps pretty much straight away. Ronda retains. Nobody's surprised there. A pretty good showing. So yeah, fair play to both of them there. It's good to see that Ronda seems to be improving all the time, and I think people aren't giving her enough. In some sense, she's getting too much credit, because I think a lot of people just expected her to be trash, and then there are people that just don't want to give her a chance. So they kind of underrate her regardless of what she does. But I think she's coming on well. Maybe wouldn't have given her the title so soon, but you can see why WWE have done it, because it's Ronda Rousey and all the publicity it's brought them. I don't know if it's a draw on the ratings, but I'm sure it will have brought some fans over. And then last match of the night for the Universal Championship, the second Hell in a Cell match between Braun Strowman, who for the match he cashed in his Money in the Bank contract, versus the big dog Roman Reigns. So start the match, loads of weapons, loads of chair shots to little effect from Reigns onto Strowman. At one point, Strowman goes shoulder first into the ring post. Roman hits a DDT on Strowman onto a chair. Strowman kicks out. There was kind of a 3 count botch from Foley, where he does hit 1, 2, 3 on the mat before Roman can get his shoulder up. I mean, it was close. I don't know who that falls on, because Foley's only doing his job by trying to count the 3. Maybe he didn't anticipate that Roman was going to get his shoulder. Well, maybe he anticipated that Roman was going to get his shoulder up, and when he didn't realise that he had to do the 3 count. Or not, I'm not sure. One thing I noticed in this match, there seemed to be a woman squealing constantly throughout it, and it was really annoying, and it took away from the match a little bit. If I was sat next to her in the arena, I would have been super pissed, and would have wanted to have hit her with a chair shot on my own. Strowman hits Roman with steps and he gets a 2 count. Then Roman hits Strowman with a spear through the table, again only gets a 2 count. What I did count were the finishers. In the match there were, because he likes to hit them, there were 5 Superman punches, but to be fair, there was only 1 spear, 1 power slam from Strowman, and 1 choke slam from Strowman. After Braun kicks out from the spear through the table at the 2 count, Dolph and Drew and then Seth and Dean come out and brawl outside. Ziggler climbs the cell, Rollins follows him and they fight. Drew ends up going up, and then Dean follows him with the kendo stick and then goes wild with the kendo stick. And whilst all of this is going on, Ziggler climbs down the cell, Rollins chases. They have the tables. They have the spot where they both fly off the cell into the announce tables. Not from the top of the cell, but from pretty high up. They're probably 2/3 of the way up. So they're throwing themselves through it. Meanwhile, whilst all of this is going on, Reigns and Strowman haven't moved, so they're just lying on the floor for 7 minutes or whatever while all this is happening, which is strange considering what Roman has kicked out of and got up from and what Strowman's got up from. It's just doesn't really make sense. So they're just both lying there. I think if I was lying down for 7 minutes, I'd have ended up falling asleep. It's just silly. Then, shockingly, Brock Lesnar returns, kicks the door off the cell, and the door kind of falls onto the top rope. So it's like a ramp. And Brock, and fair play to him, you can tell he's in UFC mode because he looks a lot trimmer than he was when he was last in WWE, and that was only a few weeks ago. So he's putting the work in, and he looks. I always find he looks better with a beard. I think he looks meaner with a beard. He looks like more of an animal. So he kicks the door off, climbs up the door into the ring. At this point, Heyman sprays CS in Foley's face, which doesn't really make sense. Yeah, I don't know. Like Foley, there was no point in Foley being in this match as a special guest referee. He didn't get involved at all. He botched a 3 count, and then he gets sprayed in the face. It's like just have a proper ref do it. There was no need for it, because he was never going to take a bump. He's well into his 50s, maybe even into his 60s. I don't know, and his body must ache every day from what he put himself through. So yeah, Brock goes in, starts beating on Reigns and Strowman with table fragments. So the table that Roman had speared Braun through, Brock picked up the remnants of that and was just wailing on the two of them. F5 to Strowman, F5 to Reigns, onto Strowman, and this is where I thought a ref was going to come in and count the 1, 2, 3. That's how I thought it was going to happen. I thought Roman was going to stay on Braun. Ref runs in, 1, 2, 3. Reigns retains. That would seem like it made the most sense, because you could have gone down the storyline that Brock felt like Braun screwed him out of the title at SummerSlam because he's too busy concentrating on Braun, and he would want to exact his revenge on Braun for that, but also want to exact revenge on Reigns for winning the title off him. But then a ref runs in and calls a no contest. Now, I mean, they were already going to tease that, and they already teased it for the Jeff Hardy and Randy Orton match, which doesn't make sense. I don't know why you'd call off a Hell in a Cell match, considering what has happened. Even, like, forget about Mick Foley flying off a cell twice or whatever and through the cell roof. Forget about that. That was, 20 years ago and whatnot. Last year, Shane McMahon threw himself off the top of a cell, and the match continued. Only for the pinfall, granted, but the match continued. There was an ending to the match. So it just makes absolutely no sense whatsoever to have a no contest finish for a Hell in a Cell match. It kind of makes me feel like WWE messed up by having it inside the cell in the first place. So yeah, I don't know. Because if they're going to call a no contest, why not just DQ? Is it so? Is a Hell in a Cell? Is it a no DQ? It must be. It didn't make sense. I don't know what they were thinking. I have seen a clip on Instagram of the fans after it's gone off air, with the "this is bullshit" chants, which is fair enough. You want to see big spots. You want to see decisive finishes to matches, especially matches that are inside Hell in a Cell. So that was probably the biggest bugbear of everybody who watched the pay-per-view. Just the ending to the Hell in a Cell, to the Universal Championship match, was an absolute mess. So I'm recording this after I've watched Raw, and I can kind of see why they've done it, because they're going into the triple threat at Saudi Arabia. But on the flip side, like, I think they could have done it anyway, even if Roman had retained, because Braun still would have had a legitimate claim for a Universal title match, and he'd also want to get back at Brock. So I think if they'd have finished it with how they did, so in that Roman is F5'd onto Braun, and kind of like what they did with the Raw Tag Title match, where he's just lying on top of Braun, a ref comes in and counts a 1, 2, 3. That's fine, because Brock did get a pop when he came out, and there were Suplex City chants. So people were, as crazy as it may seem compared to the kind of like the apathy towards Brock a couple of weeks back, people were pleased to see him, because it was something unexpected and something a little bit crazy for the match, which people are always going to pop for that. So that, yeah, they should have just finished it with Brock F5 and Roman onto Strowman, 1, 2, 3. Still have the triple threat in Saudi Arabia, which again is annoying, because I mean the Saudi Arabia thing, kind of, I don't know how they're pushing the narrative of a women's evolution if they're just going to keep selling themselves out and going to Saudi Arabia where the women can't compete. The only plus side to it is, Sami Zayn doesn't have to get vertigo again, so that he doesn't have to kind of kayfabe rule him out of Saudi Arabia, because he's legitimately hurt with both of his shoulders. So I suppose that's the only upside to that, but I think that they're letting themselves down. We're going back to Saudi Arabia, unfortunately. I get that they've got their rules, Saudi Arabia, and they're as confusing as it might sound to a lot of people. If those are their rules, then that's, you have to kind of respect it in a sense, but don't push a narrative that you're this progressive company that are giving women their own pay-per-view, when you're only giving them the pay-per-view because they couldn't perform in Saudi Arabia last time, and now you're going back there. There's just it's all bullshit. Anyway, I digress. That's the end of the show, as it were. Let us know what you think, your views on the pay-per-view, what your high points were, what your low points were. You may have noticed that I've updated. Well, I thought I'd updated the logo on my channel. I think it looks a bit smarter. Yeah, let us know what you think, and I hope to be back with another show as soon as possible. I'd like to do a weekly thing. In fact, that is my plan. I'll probably start it next week, where I'll probably wait until Thursdays and do a roundup of Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and maybe 205 Live, maybe the Mae Young Classic. I don't know yet, but I want to do Raw, SmackDown, and NXT for certain. So thanks guys, and I will see you soon. Bye.